Welcome to the 63rd edition of Women's Wrestling Weekly, the show. I am Kyle Klingman, joined by Scott Beck. Only one topic on the slate for this edition, and that is the 2026 NWCA National Duals. Epic gets thrown around loosely sometimes, but that's what this championship was, epic. You crowned three champions in the NCAA all divisions. It was North Central. In the NAIA division, Life won its fourth championship in 5 seasons, and the new Division III was won by Wartburg. It starts and stops with North Central winning over Iowa in the semifinals, the top-ranked team, top-seeded team, and number 2 McKendry in the finals. We got to start with Iowa, Scott. You watched from New York City. Your thoughts initially on this iconic duel where North Central won 4 out of 10 matches, 3 falls, had an upset at 117 pounds, and came away with a 23-21 win over the Hawkeyes.
I mean, it was an absolutely phenomenal dual meet. And you knew kind of something was brewing like early where Kalani Schuth felt, pinned Nyla Valencia when she was losing. And she got a takedown. She was losing and she just bar armed her and just went after it. And then when Riley Riom, took out Brianna Gonzalez, she kind of knew something special potentially was going on. And it was, can this really happen? On paper, it seemed, really unlikely. And then what was kind of crazy was that, they lost a couple, you had the match where Sky Reelan hit a 4-point arm throw at the very end of the match to beat Claire DeCunha 6-6 on criteria. And that felt like they had to kind of have that match. And then you were going into Murderer's Row, of Larramendi, Blades, and Welker. So it was just like at first like, can this really happen? And like, nah, Iowa just reasserted themselves. And then kind of, we went to those upper weights and, you and I get accused, Kyle, of sometimes not focusing on the upper weights, but between this match and, the final match, which we'll talk about, this was all about, the upper weights at the very end of the matches.
What you brought up there, I didn't think there was any path that North Central could win this without winning one, at least, maybe even two at 131, 138, 145. So you have Yili Akok, a two-time returning national finalist, who is coming off of an injury. She falls to Carly Brooks 8-4 in the 131-pound match.
And I'm going to interrupt for 1 second, just since you mentioned Carly Brooks. I thought she wrestled exceptionally well this weekend. She really, to me, looked really good, and it seems to be developing, and it's opened up a little bit more. And her attacks look good. She had a variety of them. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I was very impressed with her.
And she did look poised in that moment. It didn't feel like the moment was going to overwhelm her, and she's won some big matches, so she did look good. So that was critical for Iowa to be able to get that one. Thought that North Central could possibly win that. And then 138, you just think you have a returning national champion. Claire DeCunha is wrestling well, and she's up 6-2. And from the corner, you hear Joe Norton, the North Central coach, no underhooks because they knew it was coming. They knew she has that arm throw. It's what she's known for. And she pushed into it, and she got it right at the end. If you know criteria, you get the 4-point throw and you win 6-6 on criteria. So I really thought with them losing that match, there was really no realistic path for North Central to win this.
Yeah, it sure felt that way. And, and I think, Claire DeCunha, I'm sure feels a lot better that they came back and won, and won that, won the dual meet. But yeah, things happen. And Reeland had attempted it on third twice and gotten slips when they were defended by DeCunha and hit it. But yeah, I mean, listen, Welker, did not, got just a regular decision. And, you got some points from Miller, so she got the 1 point. So that was only a 3-1. And then Blades gave up a point early. So even though she got the tech fall 11-1, North Central picked up a point there. So, you and I have talked about it in these dual meets, everything matters, whether you give up a fall. I mean, the fact that, Welker, had Miller on her back and almost got the fall. You saw Joe Norton screaming like a maniac that they're out of bounds, that the head's out of bounds. The ref kept it going because the feet were in, but then the head was clearly in. And she's on her back fighting for her life, fought it off, and then gave up the decision and got a point. So everything matters. It's amazing. It was and then then we came down to heavyweight. And if you're sitting there, you're saying, okay, you know, JC Feller is, four-time runner-up. They put Yearby out. I think that's the way to pronounce it. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. New name for me. Basically, she comes out, hits an arm spin, gets the takedown, and then just hits a vicious lefty headlock for the fall. I mean, it was just insane that the match ended that way. And Iowa had never lost the dual meet. North Central's had a couple of heartbreakers to Iowa in the past couple of years, so that was exciting, and it set up the final match, with McKendry and North Central.
So looking at this, let's just go through the team scoring and how important this is and how freestyle team scoring works. So it starts out with Val Solorio winning by a technical superiority. So she was Iowa's top point getter for team points because she had a technical fall without giving up a point. So she got 4 net points for the University of Iowa. So that was crucial for them to get started with that. So when you go from that, and then you're thinking at 110, you have Nyla Valencia, who is up 3-0 late. So if it holds that way, you're going to get 3 net team points for Iowa, and there will be, of course, 0 for North Central. That flips around, and that is a fall for North Central, which is 5. So that is an 8-point swing right there. And then you're able to get the fall from Sarah Sterner at 124 pounds.
That was a big thing for Iowa because if you think about it, on paper, really, you're thinking that, Callie Lang and Sarah Sterner could be a good match, but, Sterner got the fall. So that was a big match and just made it, I think that kind of kept North Central alive, ultimately.
And then at 117, who would have thought Riley Rayom would beat Brianna Gonzalez, a returning national finalist, wins the U.S. Open. She's in Final X. She's competitive with Felicity Taylor, has looked good in the past year. I just never saw that coming in any capacity to win 3-3 on criteria. Again, one of those where you're just trying to make sense out of things. And so when you look at the totality of this, North Central wins 4 out of 6 matches, and they score in 9 out of 10 because they were able to score individual match points in those matches and get team points. So that's what won them the duel.
And then there's just so many crazy permutations of things that almost happened that didn't. So like Bella Mir is in a very close match with Reese Laramendi. And there's a couple of calls I didn't love. One in rear standing. I thought Mir should have got caution one. But then she has to come and attack at the end to try to, she's losing on criteria. And Reese Laramendi hits one of the best pancakes I've ever seen. Just one of those, whip thud. And ends a match with Mir on her back. And she could have gotten a fall there. There wasn't a lot of time, but it was pretty close. But Mir didn't give up the fall, which is what is key. So right now, okay, you're in the match. You have to go for something. You attack, you get thrown to your back, but you tough it out. You don't give up the fall. And these things are all just so crucial. I mean, in that Welker match, not giving up the fall, where, Welker, it was pretty close. I mean, Miller was on her back and it looked pretty bad, but she fought it. So there were just so many things and so many permutations that made this just such an exciting match. And then the history behind it, of course, and then the choice at heavyweight, which is a non-All-American. According to Joe, in your interview with him in the article, a third string.
We're being a little bit strategic. The plan was to put Shanita at heavyweight. But when JL scored a point, it changed everything, right? So she scored a point, put us on the board. That gave us the opportunity to put Deja out there to get a fall, to get a win. We brought Deja here for that. She's our third string heavyweight on the depth chart right now, but she is super dangerous and she gets a lot of pins, and that's why we brought her, and she's a gangster for that.
Literally, the third string heavyweight goes to 6 or 4-time national finalists. So go figure.
Well, and let's especially focus in on 160 and 180 because Kylie Welker has been out. So she didn't look her best by any means. So I'm guessing that Kylie Welker is going to look different in March. So when you think about what those two have done, they do not give up points. They win by technical superiorities without giving up points. They dominate. And so you think of someone who is a superior opponent in Yelena McCoyed. The last few times, Kylie Welker has won by tech and fall in many of those matches. I know she fell to her at the Olympic trials in 2024, but she has dominated that series. So you're thinking and expecting these are going to be technical superiorities minimum without giving up points. If they don't, Iowa is tied at the end 23-23, and they're going to win on criteria because they have more matches, which was the same scenario in 2024 when you had the activity clock with JC Feller, who got that, who was in this finals match in 2026. You have the same scenario. She gets that activity clock point, and then Iowa wins it 21-20. Had they not, North Central would have won 20-20 because they had the most match wins. So it's funny how things mirrored each other a little bit when you break this down and see what could have been.
It comes back to what you and I have said. In this format, everybody matters. And how you fight, and there's interesting dynamics. I mean, we'll get to, the North Central McKendry match, but just like the whole game, what do you like? The risks you take or don't take matter. Like, for example, in the Bellamere Alexis Gomez match in the finals, Bellamere's up 9-0. Now she's got to decide, okay, how important is it that I take a risk? And she was trying at the end. She was going for the step out and kept attacking to get the tech fall. Now, you take a risk. If you get the tech fall, you get an extra point. But in doing so, if you make a sloppy mistake, you may not get the tech fall and give up a point. And so not only have you gone for trying to get that extra point to get the tech, you may give up by getting your opponent on the board. Now, conversely, if you're Alexis Gomez, you're down by 9. Okay, well, you can take a risk and try to get a point, so you get the point. But in doing so, if you're sloppy, maybe you give up a go behind because you take a bad shot. You give up the tech, so that's another point. So the calculus, and I'm sure, everybody's out there. Maybe some people it's all flashing through their head. Maybe some people nothing's flashing through their head, and they're just listening to the coach. But it's such a interesting calculus of do you take the risk or not? Is it worth the reward at that point? And it's very interesting. And then just people showing moxie and fighting off your back. Happened multiple times. It's just such a great format. This event was phenomenal. We're harping at the moment on the Division I because the NCAA, because it had Iowa, the Goliath, lost their first dual meet ever, and then North Central won their first tournament. They competed up a division, which from what they had to, because they could have done the Division III. So. Just phenomenal event and very exciting wrestling and just so many subplots and things of that nature.
Is this the biggest upset in women's college wrestling history? I'm going to say yes, just because you have a D3 program in North Central. They've been in the finals the previous 3 seasons and never got one. They lost to King, they lost to Iowa the last 2 seasons, and then finally they get this win over McKendry in the finals, which we will talk about. When you look at what North Central lost after last season, they lost Amani Jones, who's a multiple world medalist. You lost Yelena McCoy from 2 years ago. You lost Alara Boyd from a couple years ago. So you don't have that coming back on your 2024 team. And so those are monsters. Jaslyn Gallegos was not there. So you're missing 4 national champions from your lineup. And so you have to fill in some gaps. So Iowa lost some too. You lost Macy Kilty, but you fill in with Reese Laramendi, who's a returning national champion. Nenea Estrella is missing, but you have Sky Reeling filling in, who's a 2-time All-American. So when you look at this, and even Joe Norton said it in his interview, he said he felt like this was the biggest upset in women's college wrestling history.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest win in the history of college women's wrestling, I think. We've been trying to get that one for 3 years now. So, yeah.
There's some debate about that, but it's interesting because some people are saying that North Central has an advantage because they can recruit more and get more wrestlers in their program. And I fail to see that because of roster caps right now for Division I don't see it as an advantage. And I'm going to steal a point from Andy Hamilton. He said that the only advantage that North Central has is that they don't have any advantages. So they have to be perfect. They have to dial it in. They have to do absolutely everything right in order to get this accomplished. And it felt like they did.
I don't see how capping a roster at 30. 30, I think the cap is 30, I believe, for
Correct.
Division One. That's enough. There's 10 weights. You have 30 people in your room. That's enough. So I don't think not being able to have 40 as opposed to 30. Yeah, normally the last 10 are just cannon fodder to get abused by the other 30. The bottom 10. Normally, I would say if you have 40 people in a room. Yeah, I mean, you could also feel like I don't want to say it didn't matter to Iowa because that's just utter projection on my part. But they're the Goliath. They're the champs. They haven't lost. To them, this is just business. To North Central, this is an opportunity to do something crazy. And you could just feel the energy. And if anything, they could wrestle a little freer. They had nothing to lose. If you're wrestling Brianna Gonzalez and, Briley Rayon, what do you have to lose out there? You know what I'm saying? I mean, the pressure's all on Gonzalez, and there were other ones, maybe, you sit there and say you're wrestling Kylie Welker, and you're just trying to get, a Graveman's wrestling Blades, she goes out there. I mean, we all know what the outcome is going to be, but we don't know if maybe, she can come out there and get that first point and surprise Blades. Then Blades, becomes all business, dominates, hits one of her. Why she gets the Entertainer of the Year, because she entertains, and she hit the gorgeous 5, which it's insane. And you and I had to decide that in freestyle, you could literally pretty much drop somebody on the back of their spine and launch them, and it's fine. But, then we go back to that Sage Mortimer one where if you snap somebody down, they disqualified her. I still have a problem with that call. But at the end of the day, though, maybe they wrestled freer. They wrestled like, this is probably the last time we're doing this. Let's just put it on the line and see what we can do. So they seemed freer to me. They seemed behind each other. I don't know. It's just sometimes things happen, and this is one of those times. And I got to be honest with you, as you know, I'm not hitting about it. I'm a big Hawkeye fan. I am in every sport. I love Iowa wrestling. I love the state of Iowa. Married the state of Iowa, with my wife Jenny. But it's fun to see crazy upset, and I'm happy for Joe Norton and North Central. They do a great job there with less resources, and every so often it's fun to shake things up and see something different. When you have the target on your back, it's also hard. It is hard to always have a target on your back. Everybody, you beat an Iowa wrestler, you make your season. Now I'm going to talk about the team, an athlete. Every athlete that goes out there for Iowa has a target on the back, and it's hard because you can't always be up for every match and everybody's gunning for you. So it's hard. I'm not saying they don't have advantage, they do, but it's also hard when everybody's taking shots at you all the time.
Going into the McKendry final, you have North Central against McKendry. McKendry outlasted Grand Valley State in the semifinal to set up this epic final. Again, I thought that on paper, McKendry was going to win this against North Central because of what they had. They had a loaded lineup. You have world medalists, age-level world medalists coming in, and North Central in this situation, where in the Iowa duel, they won 4 out of 10 matches. North Central turned the tables and actually won 6 out of the 10 matches. And again, it comes down to heavyweight. You brought up this point. When has there been a national dual meet tournament or any? You can do state tournament, you can do state duels, where in the semis it comes down to heavyweight and you use one heavyweight. And then in the finals it comes down to heavyweight and you use another heavyweight. So they moved up Shanita Lawson, who's at 180, against Tristan Kelly, the returning 270-pound national champion, who also weighed in at 180. They both bumped up, and then they wrestle at 207 pounds. Tristan Kelly was up 2-1. Lawson got a step out late, and then she held on for a 2-2 win, and North Central wins.
I'll tell you something. First of all, what's shocking about this is, let's just say, I mean, if you just take a step back, okay? So Iowa goes to heavyweight. They put this, I guess Joe said she's like third string. All she does is go in and hit a great arm spin. So it wasn't like she was just pushing. She hit a great arm spin and then ripped a lefty headlock for the fall. We get a fourth time. So okay, great job. You just beat Iowa for us, or helped us beat Iowa in the last match with all this pressure. Everybody's celebrating, jumping up and down. Now you're in the next match. You're going down the last weight. And then you say, okay, sorry, I guess your performance wasn't good enough. We're going to go back. We don't think you did well enough. We're going to put somebody else in. We're going to put Shanita Lawson in, because you didn't do well. Like if you're her, you're like Yarby, you're like, what did I do wrong? I just won the match. I don't get another shot. But that was tactics. And Joe said, because we texted a little bit after that he thought the matchup was that Darby is a pinner, and they knew they needed the fall there, and they didn't necessarily. And it was just brilliant tactics. It's unbelievable that you come down with a different heavyweight and then win the match. And I would say Lawson was a great tactical match because it looked like Kelly was controlling the ties. She got the passivity and push out. Lawson gets a step out, but then she hit for that second step out to get that second point, which put her up on Korea. She hit a great knee snatch and then pushed out from that. So it wasn't just pushing. It was a very good tactical match, and she did a great job of hand fighting to hold off Tristan Kelly, who on paper is a defending national champ. So I've never seen anything like it. And we finished. It was just crazy stuff along the way. I mean, it was the whole situation with Claire DeCunio had that heartbreaker loss in the semis. Team wanted to win the duel anyway, and she pulls out a really close match, against Jaffe. And Jaffe, I thought, wrestled well. To tell you the truth, she lost 5-4, but she did a really good job against DeCunio, and she looked good. I think she was, had a good, I don't think she's probably happy about the match, but she wrestled well. I think she's going to be really good. I thought the McKendry team looked very good overall, for the weekend. Shelby Moore had a couple of tough losses. That was a key match for Sarah Sterner to pull that one out at the end and win that match. But there was just so many back and forth matches. Cam Guerin, gave up some points, but then, kind of, against Grace Stem, but, then came out strong at the end of the match. It was good to see her back wrestling. She had a close match. I think she was up, 1-9-8 in one of the matches, very close. But it's good to see her healthy, hopefully fully healthy, back on the mat. She'll be going for a fifth NCAA title, a fifth national title, which will be unbelievable. Wish her luck. That's a tough weight class. There's going to be nobody's handing her that national title. I promise you, she's going to have to work. But just great day of wrestling, and dramatic matches, great performances, and people had tough losses, came back, won tough matches. It worked both ways. It was just amazing.
And I just want to point this out. You look at 180 pounds, Destiny Rodriguez wins 6-0 over JL Miller in that final. So as we're talking about the freestyle team scoring, Destiny Rodriguez netted more team points in that situation because she got 3 and Miller got 0 than Kylie Welker did, who got 3 and Miller got 1.
Absolutely. And I thought that might have sealed the match, her not giving up a point there. And I thought she wrestled a great match, Rodriguez, and that was crucial. It's really amazing the nuances of some of these giving up a point, not getting a point, not getting a fall, giving, and it all matters. It all matters. And to win this is a great thing about Doom. Is you have to wrestle as a team. The hero, can be Miller not giving up the fall of Welker, in the semis. I mean, it's crazy that matters. Then you had, Bellamere getting, the 9-0 tech. She didn't get the 10th, but what should she risk to get it? Because to get the 9th point, she was being aggressive, and then she almost got a 2 there. It was a push out. I mean, but she avenged the loss to Gomez. She had lost to Gomez in the Pro League. I think it was 7-3 or 8-3, something like that. I forget, but it was a solid win. And I was confused by that result. Not that I don't think highly of Alexis Gomez, but I think very highly of Bellamere. I was a little perplexed, and she comes out, wins 9-0, after losing a tough match to Larramendi that she was in, and she wrestled, I thought, very well, and she had to be aggressive at the end. Listen, I don't care about the pancake. First of all, great pancake by Larramendi. It's the best one I've seen in years by anybody. It was a thud. But I liked it. Bellamere gave up a couple. I thought there was a 2-2 at the end of the period that was just called 2 for Larramendi. But I liked that Bellamere was attacking at the end there. So she gave it the pancake. Who cares? She was going to get the points and being aggressive about it. So I have no problem with that whatsoever.
And when you break this down further, you look at this McKendry duel and the Iowa duel. In both situations, when it came down to 207 pounds, which is heavyweight, I said there's no way North Central can win this because I just felt like in both situations they were the overwhelming favorite with Iowa and McKendry in that situation. So I just think that you stay in these matches, and for it to come down to heavyweight like that, it is epic.
Epic. And I think to the young athletes, this is really important. And we've talked about this, but there's a reason you actually don't hand the awards out based on previous results and rankings. There's a reason you have to wrestle the matches because things aren't chalk. Anybody can be beat, and people improve, people have better, people make a mistake. That's why you wrestle the matches. So you have to believe in yourself, have your coach. And in your interview with Joe Norton, he said, how can I tell the athletes to try to believe in themselves when they're underdogs if I don't believe in this team as an underdog?
I always felt it was possible. We have to keep standing in front of our team and telling them that's possible. I can't look at someone and say, hey, you can go beat this person that seems unbeatable as an individual if I'm not the head coach of the team saying that we can beat a team that seems unbeatable. So we've said from day one, like, we have to be willing to say that we're going to go with them and step up and swing the bat as hard as you can and try to hit a home run, and we finally did.
I'm not saying that you go out there and just say, I'm going to beat everybody, but you got to believe that, with your training, as you improve, you can avenge losses, and rankings mean nothing. That's why you wrestle the matches. You see upsets in wrestling all the time. I mean, how many times have we watched a round in a tournament or a duel meet and say, like, we're hyperventilating? Like, did you just see what happened? Like, so things happen.
Two lasting memories I'm going to have, especially in the Iowa duel, is number one is just seeing the North Central and the Iowa crowd next to each other. That's what grows the sport. As we talk about what elevates it, you have to have these teams that don't like each other, and you rattle each other's cages, and you're getting chippy. Because they got chippy in the McKendry duel, too. You saw Cam Guerin doing this.
It was borderline obnoxious. It was hilarious, but I love it.
Yeah, it is because you know what? North Central fans are obnoxious, and they should be. That's the best compliment you could give, is they are absolutely obnoxious. So you saw Cam Guerin do this, and then Bella Beer goes over and she chirps and she goes to the crowd. So you need that to grow. If you don't have that type of rivalry, it's a dead issue. You need that.
And broadly speaking, we talk about the growth of the sport. This is all good, great stuff. And to anybody that wants to see, like, I hope people that have supported women's wrestling or into it or believe in it, try to go back and watch this and just see if you feel it. And you were there, I wasn't, unfortunately. It's hard to watch when you're there and follow it. It's hard to follow on multiple screens. There's so much going on at the same time. But the energy and the excitement, from the teams is not remotely rivaled by the men, number one. And it just shows you that this is a great sport, and what this is doing for these athletes' lives as people. They're all not going to be all Americans, national. Some will. As we have Olympians, we have world medalists, but it's so good for them. And number two, I think the other theme I took out of this is, am I going to sit here and say that all the best girls wrestling in this tournament are like way better than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago? No, because you had your Allie Reagans, your Helen Maroulis, your Sarah Hildebrands. They were all right. Kayla Miracles, Grace Boolin. I mean, we've always had good people at the top. And there's been some depth, but the depth now where you can have somebody who's not ranked or never been an All-American, who maybe you would pencil in if you had to as a number 12 to a 15, that is giving a match to a third to a fifth type ranked person. So I think the pool of people that are good enough now to All-Americans, and I would have said maybe 3 to 5 years ago, maybe you can coach a number 9 up to a 7 All-American. But now I think we can have a 20th ranked person competing with a third ranked person. I mean, these girls in the depth, we're getting better. It's getting better, and this is happening. It's still very different than international wrestling. It's its own little kind of weird hybrid almost, but it's getting a lot better.
Second thing that will be imprinted in my mind, I wish I would have had the camera on it, and unfortunately the camera was on the opposite side, is I only saw Gary, but I'm going to assume it was the other coaches too, but Gary Mayab seemed genuinely excited for North Central when they won that meet. He was clapping. He looked over at them. Just this true sign of sportsmanship. So just seeing Gary doing that, and I wish I would have been there for this, after the 2024 championship where it came down to the wire at the National Duals, and the National Collegiate Women's Wrestling Championships, and it came down to the last match, and Iowa won both. Joe Norton and Gary Mayab had this epic conversation at the coaches convention in Florida where they talked into the night and talked about things and broke things down and pulled out their notebooks. So I wish I could have been there for that. So there is respect on both sides from those coaches. So that was fun to see Gary Mayab, and I'm assuming the other coaches, because just watching Clarissa, she showed grace in that too. So Iowa bounced back and got third, and I thought looked good in that Grand Valley State duel. But credit to Gary Mayab
Yes.
for really celebrating that win and applauding the moment.
Obviously, sportsmanship is important, and I think at the end of the day, I'm sure there's people that genuinely don't like each other, but for the most part, I think in the wrestling community, people have respect for each other, and I think it's obviously very important.
So to close this thing out, I think it's imperative that we say that for now, the best NCAA all-division dual team is North Central. So in that format, North Central is the best team. Now, their reward is that they get to go against Life University on Thursday, January 15th, on FloWrestling Night in America. So you have the best NAIA team. Life University won its 4th championship in 5 seasons, going against
Dominantly.
dominantly against the best NCAA team. So this weird quirk of timing and fate, and now we have this together where we get an all division true championship where they get to wrestle each other in Marietta, Georgia. I don't know if this will ever happen again, but I think this is great that this is happening.
It's absolutely phenomenal that the champions are wrestling each other. Life dominated the NAIA. I think even in the finals with the forfeit at the end against William Penn, the score it wasn't as close as the score. There was a forfeit at 207, but this is amazing, and it's like it just shows you. I said, enjoy. Yeah, Joe. Okay, enjoy your title, and get back to work because you got a major duel meet on Thursday with the NAIA champs. But it just you could not script it better. It's great that those two are wrestling, and I think it's gonna be an interesting duel meet. I think the biggest thing for Life, you hit 131, right? And you have Sarah Savage, who seems to be wrestling better. She had a little bit of I don't know if she was injured or whatever. She was a little down, but she's she beat Wapalama Estrella Beauchamp, who's a national champ, from Providence. But then you hit McBride. So just think that is murderer's row. I mean, I'm not even talking about the other weights. They're lightweights. They have some very good athletes, across the board. The team's very solid, obviously, across the board. You shot well, but when you hit, literally, you're going Sarah Savage is a 2-time NAI runner-up, and then McBride, who have all won national titles. I mean, that is just murderer's row.
And they won 34 out of 40 individual matches. One was a disqualification. I think the other was an actual forfeit. I think that we're setting this up. I think William Penn, once they get the Nigerian Olympians back into the lineup, so at 117, you would have Christiana Ogunsanya. You saw Mia Palumbo, who's a 3-time NAIA finalist and a national champion in 2024. She missed last season. She is back. So she will be at 110 pounds. So she wrestled at 117. So she wrestled up a weight. You have Mia Palumbo at 110. You'll have Ogunsanya at 117. And then you're going to have Esther Koalawali at 145 pounds. Those are all 3 national champions that you're going to have in the lineup for William Penn. This is going to be a photo finish. This is not going to be easy, especially when Life lost 2 of their hammers. One opted not to participate this year in Anea Falcon, and then you had Savannah Isaac transfer out to Tiffin. So you lost 2 big powerhouses in your lineup, and then you gained some for William Penn. I think this is going to be a race to the finish. It was 70 points last year. It will not be in 2026.
No, and especially in a tournament format where that those athletes are going to score a lot of points. I mean, but the Nigerians are very good. It's a shame they didn't make it back in time for this tournament, but it's a lot to ask. But yeah, I think the tournament will be way closer for that reason, and especially in that format, and Palumbo is very good and very solid, and she's probably going to as the season goes on, I would expect to get better as she wrestles more matches, and acclimates to the higher weight class as well.
And I thought William Penn did look good, even though they were shorthanded with two of their best wrestlers. I think even last season, they didn't even have remotely close to what their lineup was going to be in the postseason. And this year it was a little closer to that. So the prospect of a William Penn versus Life duel, which will happen at the For Her Duels. So as we get to look ahead and think about conceptually the duels that we want, you're going to have Life against William Penn again at the For Her Duels. And we do get what I thought was going to be the final in McKendry versus Iowa at the For Her Duels on February 8th. So we have some exciting things to happen. And then you're going to have the winner of the NAIA division of that going against the NCAA division. So we have some really good things happening right now. You have the national duels. You have North Central against Life to determine the all divisions national duels title. And then you're going to have the For Her Duels. So we finally get to see that McKendry versus Iowa. So we're cooking with fire right now. This is a fun time to be a women's wrestling fan.
Yeah, and then we're going to start, on the international scene. We're going to start with the first ranking series in a few weeks, and then the second one at the end of February. So we'll start to get that stuff going as well. So, yeah, this is really good stuff. I mean, this event, I love this event. You and I have talked about it, but I love that you have the For Her Duels as well, that Life and North Central agreed to this other duel. But it's just really, fun formats where everybody matters. It's really good stuff. And now we're hitting the heart of it. So, but this event, I felt it exceeded expectations, and I had high expectations, for a good couple of days of wrestling. And I think we exceeded them. And there was just a lot of, and we can't get into all of it because it's so much, but there were just a lot of crazy matches, upsets, people that you wouldn't think could go with somebody, down performances, which we don't like to be negative, so we won't go there. And some up performances. But overall, it's an amazing event, and it's really, if you want me to complain, I think the quality of the stream could have been better. It just wasn't that clear to me, but can't get everything right.
And then the other issue, I don't know how we fix this, and that is the massive stoppages in the action, especially in the Grand Valley State versus Presbyterian. You're waiting at 110. There's a challenge, and I think what happens is you have to get an IT guy come, and then there's an impartial official that has to come and watch it. I'm probably exaggerating it, but it felt like it was 20 minutes where they're pacing back and forth and they're waiting. I mean, I saw Chloe Deerwester pacing back and forth more than I've ever seen her in my life, just because she's just waiting for this to happen. You break the action, and that duel in particular, it was happening all the time because of the challenges. And some of those challenges were needed. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have this, but how do we speed this up? Because as fans, we want this to keep moving along.
It's bad. And they were 15 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes almost. And some of the matches were multiple. It takes the athletes out of the rhythm. And then there can be tactics if you're a coach and your athlete's tired, knowing how long they were taking. I mean, maybe there were challenges that wouldn't have happened. I don't know. But I don't know. It's just they either don't have enough resources or there's got to be a quick way to get the fees. I mean, I'm a big believer in challenges, just in general, pretty much in football, baseball, wrestling. If you look at it and it can't be changed in 20 seconds, you don't change it. Like if it's not so obviously wrong, the call should stand. But I'm not sure that this is about them harping over, because it seems like once they got the person there, the decisions were quick. It was getting the people there. So I don't know, but it's got to be better. There's a part of me that you never want to have the wrong outcome. But I think the cost of 15 minutes is a severe cost. I'd almost rather not have challenges if they can take that long. It really takes the match at a rhythm. I don't have a solution. It's probably a resource situation. I don't know.
And as you're talking about just the level where you're saying the middle part is getting better, you look at this fourth place team in Grand Valley State. They are good. Presbyterian is good. You have a lot of these teams that showed that they have quality teams top to bottom. Even Sacred Heart getting 8th, that has been a quality program consistently. that just shows you where that level is right now of these programs and how good they're getting and some of the teams and the athletes they are getting into the program. And I just think that's a testament to knowing that even some of those backside matches have entertainment because you have some great matchups and you're seeing them immediately after a loss and you're seeing how resilient are you? How are you going to go against this opponent that may affect seeding down the road? And I think that's important to watch those and look at what happened in those results.
Yeah, and again, I think they are important for seeding, but it's also this a lot of that comes down to the coach being able to motivate the athletes to say, hey, you might be in a situation, who knows? You might be in a world championship in the repechage, and you got to be able to, you just had a tough loss. You better, get your stuff together, make weight, and get ready for the next day. Or it could be in the U.S. Open, maybe to get a qualifying spot for World Team Trials. It could be for an All-American situation. You need to get used to that. And a good coach can, it can motivate. It's hard. It's very hard to wrestle after you lose, and and your goals were shattered at the moment. Especially, and this is maybe individually somebody's goals aren't shattered. They lost a match. It's not like you blew a national title, but this is the training for when maybe your goal is to, be an All-American or take top 3, and you lose a heartbreaker, and you got to get, as Tom Brands always says, it's get the next thing. Whatever happens over. There's nothing you could do about it anymore. That happened. All you can do is move forward and get what's next, what's the next best thing. And that takes mental, fortitude and for the athlete and the coach.
Let's talk about some things that happened on day one. You have North Central going against Quincy, and there was a 9-8 match between Claire DeCunio and Sochi Motopedis. Motopedis weighed in at 128 and then moved up to 138 for this, so she's a normal 131-pounder, raced to an 8-0 lead, and then Claire DeCunio came back and won 9-8. You saw that. What'd you think?
Yeah, it was an exciting match. You're going to have an exciting match every time Mota Pettis wrestles and many times DeCunha wrestles because she's got a very unorthodox style. She can score points from anywhere with exposure. She could look dead to rights and score. I give Mota Pettis a lot of credit for being willing to go up a couple of weight classes. And, I'm sure she's not happy about that loss, but, Such is a very good competitor. She's always competed often. She's been down weight. She's been up weight. She's never feared anybody. And she just goes out there and, wrestles. And that was exciting when, DeCunha was in a bunch of crazy matches. She had, 3 of them really, lost that heartbreaker to reel in. She had a bunch of close ones, exciting matches, but I credit Mota Pettis for just willing to do that.
Yeah, she'll go out there and throw it on the line. And who else will throw it on the line is Sage Mortimer from Grand Valley State. She's a head scratcher. I love her watching her wrestle. She was on the mat side, the only one from the Grand Valley State team, and she was watching the finals, just trying to pick up data. She's a student of the sport. But go back to the quarterfinals where Presbyterian against Grand Valley State. She's in a dogfight against Jenna Anderson. At one point, I wasn't sure she was going to pull this out. She was up 12-9 when Anderson ended up injury defaulting out of the match, and you're thinking, Sage Mortimer's at the wrong weight. I don't know if she can be effective at 117. And then what does she do? She wrestles another U23 world champion, Sage Mortimer, a U23 world champion. Yu Sakamoto from Japan is a U23 world champion for McKendry. And what does she do? She wins 15-4. Explain that.
It was great. You can't explain it. And trust me, Sakamoto is very good. Winning the U23 World Championships is not easy. I promise you. And she just opened it up. And you and I are trying to figure this out. Sakamoto's had a couple losses that maybe were perplexing to us last year, and then this year there's times, and you see, in the Mortimer match, you're like, I think it comes that you're the one that raised it to me, and it totally makes sense. This idea that and I've said this to you repeatedly, the Japanese, for the most part, like to wrestle a very measured style. And, Americans women's college wrestling can be anything but measured. It's kind of chaos. And then you throw a Sage Mortimer who's throwing things from everywhere. It's utter chaos. And I don't think, that's the game that the Japanese love to play. Mortimer, she's confusing at times, but she's fun to watch. I'll say that. And I'm a big fan.
And then what does she do? She goes up to 124 in the third place match and gets a pin against Isabella Marie Gonzalez. up
That's
maybe two
crazy.
weight.
She
Like
was a
because she could still be 110, and so she's 117. She's a tweener, and then she goes up to 124 and gets a fall.
And the funny thing about that is, I remember just watching it, looking at the picture of them standing next to each other when I rewatched that match, and there was a massive size difference. Mortimer is not a 124 pounder, and Gonzalez is very good, and she will be very good, So it's but Sage is a gamer, and the headlocks are gonna fly. I promise.
So to recap, we have North Central winning the All NCAA division. We have Life University winning the NAIA division, and Wartburg wins the Division III tournament. It was the first time they held that, and Wartburg looked good. They had a close match against Aurora in the semifinals. Of course, Aurora has Lexi Janiak, who is a returning national champion at 131 pounds. And there's some good girls in the Division III. You had Zoe Lentz, who was there. You had Zoe Haynes, who was there. They're in the rankings, so there was some good individuals in the Division III. But as we move forward, those are your dual meet champions. But the tournament format is so incredibly different because in the dual format, it can be feast or famine. And if you just take the 110 match where Kailani Schufelt won by fall, you are getting all of the team points in that situation. Where in tournament scoring, hypothetically, let's say you got that in the quarterfinals, it's possible that Nyla Valencia could come back and get third place and Schufelt gets fifth place. So you could go on and actually score more team points just based on that
Yes.
format. So North Central won the dual meet championship. They're the best dual meet team. But I would say Iowa still has a monster team. I'm still predicting them to win the national championships for the first time in their backyard. McKendree has a monster team with firepower. I think that Cam Guerin, you get the cobwebs out. I think the same with Kylie Welker. I think those two athletes in particular, who are some of the best wrestlers in college wrestling right now, I think you're going to just see them continue to improve as the season goes on. And I think they knocked a little bit of the rust off. I think it could be game on for those two because Kylie Welker does not take that type of situation well. She wants to go and dominate. And I think you may have lit a fire under those two.
This isn't a sport. I don't care how good you are. This isn't a sport unless, well, maybe if you're just the greatest ever. I don't know, but you can't just show up. Wrestling's hard, and if you haven't been competing a lot, maybe you haven't been in full swing of training, doing other distractions. I don't know, but or coming back from injuries, it could be a lot of things. But it's like if you're not game on ready, can't just show up. It's hard. And it doesn't mean that Welker, didn't win or was ever in danger of losing, but just go out and tech everybody. People are good. People are going to, and you also have to understand that the people she's wrestling, like in that match, the goal of that athlete was just not to get tagged or fall, so she was slowing it down. And it is hard to wrestle somebody that's not really trying to score on you, even though she got the first takedown. But, toward the end of the match, it was just, let's get through the rest of the match. And it's hard. You don't want to be too aggressive and make a mistake and then, get thrown or pinned or something, so it's hard to wrestle somebody that's not really opening up and trying to beat you.
It absolutely is, and that's why the tournament format is so much different because there's the possibility that, like you say, you lose 8-2, but you may go 0-2 in the national tournament. Who knows? Those situations make the tournament format so much different because you may have 10, another team may have 8. You just don't know what the qualification system is going to be. So just so insanely different. But that's why I just love the dual meet format. We just keep harping on that. That is just so
I
fun
know.
to watch because you have the 10 versus 10. And so that's why whoever wins this, and then of course the FloWrestling Night in America, where you have the NAIA Life going against NCAA North Central, you got to tune into that one. And that is just going to be one of the best dual meets you're going to have of the season. And I'm not handing that to North Central just because they beat Iowa and McKendry, not by any means.
Are you
Life can
kidding
win
me?
that.
I would say for sure they can. This is, it's going to be an interesting match. I mean, you have on Life, you have 3 national champs, 2-time national. I mean, they have a good team. I'm not remotely handing it to North Central. I'm excited to watch it. And I think it's phenomenal that they're both putting it online.
Final thoughts from you, Scott. We conclude the 2026 NWCA National Duals. There's just so much. You take a deep breath, you try to decompress on this. We are still buzzing from it. This was, like you said, exceeded expectations. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my final thoughts are exceeded expectations. Amazing event, and it's a little overwhelming. So it needs to be processed. I need to go back and watch a lot more. But women's wrestling is alive and well.